My name is Seth, and in today's privacy chat, I'm joined again by the steward of FIRO, Reuben Yap. If you don't know anything about FIRO, the first time that we had them on the show, they were still branded as Zcoin. So if you've been following closely, you know that Zcoin is now FIRO, and they've since innovated so much. They've added a bunch of privacy features that have innovated so well, in fact, that other privacy projects have chosen to imitate some of their tech and then roll in some of the privacy preserving tech that the Zcoin and now FIRO has brought into the open source community. Reuben, welcome to Mind Your Biz.
Hey, so great to be here. I mean, it's been more than 2 years. I mean, we were just talking, and it's really happy to have this opportunity to share with you and your audience what's up with FIRO.
Yeah, awesome. I'm glad you were able to make the time. It was also great to just catch up on a personal note. We the last 2 years has been action packed. I mean, not a single dull moment over the last 2 years since we spoke. So great just catching up. And I feel bad that I missed you while we were in Indonesia. We intended to stop through Malaysia and do more of a tour, and we just were not able to make it. So hopefully soon. But
hopefully soon. Are you going to Monerotopia? No, right? Are you?
Unfortunately not. It's a little bit too fast a turnaround from the ETH Talon, where I'm judging the hackathon, and then the NFT Talon events in Estonia. So too many time zones in too short a number of days. So
no problem.
Yeah, but yeah, maybe next year. I'm definitely there in spirit though, and who knows? Maybe while we're doing a bit of our the political roundtable in Tallinn, Estonia, maybe we can remote in. I don't know. Fingers crossed.
We'll see.
Yeah, but let's talk a little about the fundamental issue with privacy. I think most people on the Mind Your Biz community are sort of aware that privacy is a human right, and that's why they tune in. But let's talk a little bit as you see it. What is the primary problem domain when people consider privacy or anonymity? What do they get wrong?
I think, obviously the first thing that people come to mind is that, privacy is for doing illicit activity. I mean, to me, it's like so basic, right? Obviously it's not, right? Like, I don't want people looking into my emails. I don't want people to be looking into my communications. And people are starting to get that right now. You see like Apple and even like all our messengers are now starting to move towards end-to-end encryption as the basic. But this is a relatively recent development, right? But what has kind of lagged behind is financial privacy, right? Where people think that, it's good for laundering, right? That's the general problem that we're having right now. And it doesn't help that regulators and a lot of people like to echo this and say like, oh yes, and when you have guys like North Korea that are like using stuff like Tornado Cash, it feeds into that narrative that privacy is just for criminals, right? And I think people have to realize that financial privacy is something, especially on the blockchain, is very different than, let's say, like, okay, sure, I have some funds in the bank account, right? And sure, the bank knows everything, and with the right orders, maybe the government can look into it. And even that is kind of like restricted. The government should not be able to just like look into bank accounts, whatever it is, right? But now blockchains are public. That means everybody, right? So not just the government, not just the banks, but everybody can look at the blockchain, and with the right type of tools, get a lot of data about you. And I think if you ask anyone, are you willing to show your bank statement to anyone you meet? Obviously, the answer is no, right? When I pay for something, all that person needs to know is that I paid for it. I paid for a cup of coffee. I paid for my meal. Why does he need to know about my net worth? Where I got my money from and all of that. So I think people have to shift that. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. It's a crazy idea, right? That if you were to use a debit card or a credit card, that every time you used it, that the vendor you used it with could positively correlate your identity with your net worth.
Right.
We would stop going to Starbucks, right? If that's the case, we would stop going anywhere that we go to normally conduct business if we knew that we were under constant surveillance by the people that we spend money with, for sure. Yeah, agreed. I don't think most people think about it that way, and until they get really deep into cryptocurrency, though. Like
True.
you mentioned,
And people
it's a primitive
people
here.
also think, people are saying like, well, debit card and credit cards aren't private because the credit card company gets it. There's a difference there than the credit debit company only using it, and supposedly they're supposed to keep it safe. It's not great. But remember, blockchain again is different. Everybody, the vendor themselves can also look at it. So I think it's very different, and people have to realize that. I think financial privacy, especially with the rise of central bank digital currencies, that is going to be a real, like, a scary thing, right? Where I think money is going to be weaponized. It's already being weaponized. Sanctions and what is a way of weaponizing money, and the US dollar is a weapon as well. But with the rise of CBDCs, with all this anti-privacy stuff, I think this is just going to be coming to the fore. And unfortunately, it sounds like a tinfoil hat thing, but for someone like me, I come from a legal background. I was a lawyer for 10 years, and people think that this is, I'm just being very overly dramatic because of what it is. But I think it is very clear where we are heading, and that future scares me. And that's kind of why, even though it's one of the more challenging parts of crypto, especially privacy cryptocurrency, to be in, it's something that I really feel good about fighting for. Yeah.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. And you don't need to explain that to me for sure. I definitely get that. As far as it being a mission-driven, path into the industry, right, or a mission-driven path into a career choice in cryptocurrency. I think people who work in the privacy ecosystem always sleep better at night because that you're fighting for fundamental human rights. So yeah.
Well, sleep better in some cases, but sleep not so well on other stuff. Like, just to highlight, like, the Tornado Cash developer, right, Alexei Pertsev. I don't know how to pronounce his name. He's in jail, right? And what did he do? He basically put a privacy preserving smart contract. People, unfortunately, North Korea used it, but he had no control over that. He had no admin control over that program, and suddenly now he's been rotting in jail, I think, for more than 6 months now, maybe 8 months now, and that's in Netherlands, right? It's not like some
Right.
and for a good several months, he was even without any charge. So it's ridiculous. Yeah. And when you see people like SBF sitting in their parents' home, and it's just like, wow, yeah.
yeah, right. With confirmed criminals that he personally wronged. Yeah. The contrast is it is a little bit crazy, to think about. So I hear you. On the other level, like, who knows when we're all going to get that knock on the door from somebody saying, like, well, you contributed to the decline of Western civilization because some bad guy used what you had. I mean, we could argue that to the nth degree. Linux, right? The Linux kernel, and then the FBI's work on SE Linux here in the United States. It does seem to lead towards there being government interest in these open source projects, and inevitably there is a little bit of a little more scrutiny and interest and participation from government entities. But I think without us doing this kind of pioneering work and having these kinds of conversations very publicly, then we lose the ability to control the frame and the narrative of those conversations when it does come to whatever legal inquiry, or when it does come to various figureheads who have not figureheads but contributors to the privacy ecosystem, then receiving some kind of backlash like Alexei has. So yeah, definitely my heart goes out to him. But at the same time, that hasn't stopped project developers, or the projects like Railgun, or like Secret Network, or like Monero, or like FIRO from continuing to push commits. You can't just give up on the ideal of privacy. But FIRO, for the audience's benefit, is a conditionally private UTXO based blockchain, right? With masternodes as a primitive, and then also proof of work as a primitive for consensus. So this this should appease most people who think that UTXOs are the only right way, or people who think that conditional privacy is the only right way. Can you just very briefly give us a bit of the background? Because there's been a lot of changes, but they've always been rooted in finding the best path forward for that conditional privacy. So can you give us that quick history of FIRO?
Yeah, so FIRO launched in Zcoin, as we were then known, launched in September 2016, and we were the first implementation of zero coin, which is not the same as Zcash, which uses zero cash. And the whole idea was, basically take the Bitcoin blockchain type of things and layer this type of zero coin. It was, I think, the first zero knowledge style, privacy thing. And unlike other types of mechanisms then, which were mainly like mixing or like decoys, which is like, hiding your transaction with other people's transactions, ours allowed people to destroy their coins and then redeem them for brand new ones with like the transaction history wiped off, which is really cool. So obviously, a lot has happened since then. We've actually transitioned, we think, at least to already 3 privacy protocols we've gone through, which has been like an iterative improvement. So we were starting with zero coin, we then improved zero coin, and then after that we came up with Sigma, which reduced a certain trusted component in zero coin. And then after that we went to Lelantus, which is what we have right now, which allows people to burn and redeem in arbitrary amounts. Last time we had to like burn 10, redeem 10, burn 20, redeem 20. Now you can like burn 156 point something and redeem like 23 or point, it's just like arbitrary number, which is pretty good. But right now with Lelantus Spark, which is right now on DevNet, which is like one step below before testnet, that allows that totally hidden. The amounts are totally hidden. You can't see the sender, receiver, and amount. And it also can even hide asset types, which I guess we will talk about later, because now FIRO is not just trying to be a privacy cryptocurrency. We want to be like a privacy ecosystem, and we want people to be able to build their own tokens on our blockchain with like privacy, like native support, right? I mean, sure, you can build something on Ethereum and stuff like that, but then you kind of have to shoehorn privacy, use this smart contract, and it's like really, really expensive, right? Like, yeah, sure, stuff like Railgun, Tornado Cash, all these are really good, but every time you do a transaction, it's like $30-$40, right? So and that's with current Ethereum prices,
right? Yeah, I know that pain for sure. I've been using some of these other solutions, and while they're convenient for the moment, it would be great to see much lower fee options with privacy as a primitive aspect of just working in an ecosystem.
Yeah, and we are thinking like, not just like, oh yeah, let's just make a token. I mean, sure, people can build like a privacy meme coin or something like that, and that's fine. But you could also use it for like other stuff, like privacy voting applications, which is a really cool thing. Or you can bridge over like stable coins from other stuff. I mean, now stable coins is very controversial, but the ability to bridge these type of assets into the privacy ecosystem and trade them just like, or transfer, trade, and whatever in a privacy preserving environment. I think we see ourselves as a privacy layer for cryptocurrency, and I'm really excited about that. We are also like extending support for like privacy NFTs, and people might say, well, I don't understand why we need privacy NFTs, but I think there is value in the sense that yes, I want to be able to show that I own a cool NFT, but I don't want to show all the associated history with it, right? Like this NFT, then it links to all my other transactions and stuff like that. So I think there is some value there as well, and I think it's a great engagement too, because NFTs are fun. And I think one thing that we have kind of lost in the past, I would say, slowly eroded. It's like last time when I first started in maybe 2013, crypto was fun and it was this frontier. Sure, you have this like, ideology, we are like the rule breakers with the crypto anarchists, and sure, that's the, but it was also fun. It was like, wow, this is really cool. Like mining was really fun, right? And it's like, oh, suddenly my computer can make magic internet money. It was this interesting, but now even with mining, even with like trading and all of that, it's all about, can this make me money? And that's a unfortunate shift. And that's why, although a lot of people hate NFTs, especially like people like me who should, like the OGs, right? They're like, oh, you being privacy, cryptocurrency. Of course, you hate NFT. I actually don't.
Yeah.
I like that. So I think there has to be more of that fun element, because that's the way to get engagement, not through saying like, oh yeah, the government's gonna get you, people are gonna spy on you. Yeah, sure, and I agree with that, but that only appeals to a small segment of people like me, or people like you. But the regular Joe may be like, no, I want my fun NFTs, and it's fun, and then you bridge them into, oh, by the way, there's this, you could also protect your privacy, right? You have to do both. So I totally embrace this NFT shitcoinery, as some people put it.
Yeah, no, I think it's great also, and a lot of people lack creativity as far as the applications of NFTs. We talked off camera just briefly about owning certain types of assets that aren't fungible. I mean, the thing that always comes to mind is real estate, right? You can't, even if you have the exact same floor plan of a house in tract housing, not every house on a given street or block will be the exact same value. They might be comparable. And so you couldn't issue them as digital assets in just a typical serialized way. They would have to be issued essentially as NFTs individually. Right. And then minted maybe in some kind of a special series that way, or special collection that way. But yeah, if we're serious about that, or some other kind of like land or property management rights, or any other kind of things you might want to put on chain, no, NFTs they're just a vehicle. They're just a format for digitizing those assets.
And there's nothing wrong with collectibles as well. I mean, I recently got into like Magic the Gathering. I don't know if you can see this type of stuff. So
yeah.
So like, again, like, they're pieces of cardboard. It's like digital pictures, but they have value because people like them and have fun with them. So yeah, I mean, we're digressing, but
but it's related. That's the thing. It's related. And Reuben, we're finally in a world where so many new entrants into the cryptocurrency ecosystem and blockchain ecosystem that has been their entry into our ecosystem, into our world, is by thinking about things in that way, right? As similar to physical collectibles, they think of just digital collectibles, and that was, I mean, if that's what onboarded them, like, great. I mean, they should be welcome here.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So a little bit about our consensus mechanism. Like, yes, we have been very focused on GPU mining. We were actually, we actually had like research our own mining algorithm that had its own paper and stuff like that, which was supposed to, basically democratize mining. And why we still like mining in a way is because it was a way for people to get the coins in a kind of fair manner. And you can't really do that with ASICs, right? Because the people who make the ASICs already have an unfair advantage. And people might say, well, CPUs are put people at a very even thing because, everyone has a CPU. And while philosophically I agree with it, but the reality is that botnets are a huge part of it. And GPU botnets aren't as prevalent yet, but CPU botnets are very, very widespread. There's all like whole server farms and that is an unfair advantage. It's like an ASIC in a way, because only the botnet owners with the capabilities to do that can control this stuff. So that's why we went down the GPU path. But the problem is that, especially being a smaller project, or especially not being the dominant coin in a particular hardware class, does open us to attacks. And we have suffered a 51% attack. And it was like nothing wrong with the coding, nothing wrong with the reward. It was purely, we were just like, because you're not secured by ASICs. ASICs are different, right? Because if you attack a coin that uses your ASIC, right, then your ASIC is also kind of like worthless after that, especially if it's a major coin. But for us, we got 51% attack, almost destroyed the project. And we realized, like, there needs to be a hybrid system, right? Where sure, miners are great for the distribution, right? But you also have this staking portion that can also allow the checkpoint the blocks, so that while the miners propose, they do the transactions, the master nodes then will kind of lock those blocks in, so that even if you have a longer chain, it will ignore it. Because realistically speaking, there's no good reason of why you should rewind the chain for 1 day or several hours. There's no legitimate reason. If you're withholding blocks, it's probably because you have a nefarious reason, right? And with all the there's some philosophy behind it, like, oh no, we should never have checkpoints because we want to be able to just look at the the rules and what. But look, realistically, you can talk all about that, but if your chain gets attacked, that's not great, right? Like it destroys your chain, and it also really hurts finality, right? Like I have to wait for X number of confirmations, and that's also very subjective. So I feel that this hybrid system is good, where you have the distributive power of proof of work, and it's also quite a decentralized way, because validators, they have this, you need to have a data center, you need an IP address and all of that, right? But the proof of work, you just need to spin it up anywhere, right? And as long as internet connection, you can do it. So I think it's a marriage. That's how I see it, and this is how we do our consensus mechanism, which allows, I would say, like finality within a couple of seconds, and also 51% attack protection, but still having that proof of work component. So yeah.
Yeah, no, it's pretty great for sure. I mean, I know that there were definitely when Ethereum was making proposals leading up to the merge, that as different mining pools were signaling support for what the Ethereum core developers were proposing, that large groups of popular miners in particular, not so much the large, like the actual players in the GPU mining space, but more people on YouTube, were joining together and saying, well, we're going to go move all our hash rate. And it was an open threat against the Ethereum core developer community, which it got their attention. But realistically, when it comes to institutional miners, like the large scale miners, it was not quite as much hash rate as as some of these really loud people on YouTube were threatening to move against what the Ethereum core developers wanted. So
did they even really move? I mean, I feel like they were like,
there was a move from some pools to others, and it was a very political thing. But the thing about some of this tech is that it's like, human nature is somewhat political, right? Like we like to get polarized, and we like to see power congregate. We're kind of stupid that way, actually, in large groups. Just humans. We get really dumb, right? When there's a charismatic leader that tells us to do something, we wind up making really dumb choices. But tech itself is neutral, right? Like tech is by its nature, it's neutral. It isn't good, it bad.
I actually feel like that kind of plays into the whole code is law thing, which is kind of ridiculous, because law is influenced by humans, and the fact that it's upheld like that, code is an expression of human will, of the consensus, right? And that's how it should be, right? And people who say like, oh yeah, just because there's a bug in it, Bitcoin had this inflation, but it's working. Of course not, right? Like we have seen how stupidly code as law has felt, like with the whole, what was the thing, the DAO thing with Ethereum, and so many times. So I feel that we cannot divorce the human element. It's just a way of expressing consensus, and that's what the code reflects.
Yeah, totally, completely agree there, right? Code is speech, right? Or as you said, it could be an expression of human consensus. But if you choose to participate in it, then you're making yourself subject to it. But you can always opt out. Like you have other choices, right? So rather than always try to bend everybody else's code base to your will, like if you're finding you're not getting your way, move on, opt out.
FE for proof of work, right? I don't know how's that doing.
I mean, I'm seeing a lot of people still participate in the Ethereum ecosystem, me begrudgingly, because of the TVL over in the Ethereum ecosystem. I wish it were some other way, but it's not. So anyway, moving on, Lalenta Spark, you had mentioned that this is what's next on the roadmap for FIRO, and it sounds really promising. Can you tell us more about it?
Yeah, so we were really looking for like a way to get like full on privacy, because we always pride ourselves that we didn't copy any sort of stuff, right? Because we're not just here just to build like a cryptocurrency that's going to make us rich. We really want to further the space, and how we do that is by actually putting out research. So our privacy protocol isn't copied from anyone else, right? It's nothing wrong from copying, but we wanted to say contribute, right? Not just be implementing and then like, all right, I'm copying Monero tag and doing something. So is our change like reasonable enough? Why would I want to do that, right? So our privacy protocol allows very high anonymity sets, no trusted setup. No trusted setup meaning like there isn't this fancy ceremony that if someone leaks if there's like, if that key isn't destroyed, there's actually like a backdoor that can print coins out of thin air, right? And it uses quite simple cryptography, at least relatively simple cryptography that's much more well understood, and it's also modular, right? That means like we have a proof that does membership, we have a proof that hides amount, so they're all in separate components, which also allows us to upgrade it in the future as well. Or if there's a problem there, it doesn't affect the whole construction, it only affects that component as well. So I think there are very good benefits to it, because I would say it's one of the issues with the ZK space is amazing, but it's also a very small group of people that get it because it's so complex. And with all these very complex ZK constructions, I would say maybe 100 people in the world maybe like really, really get this stuff, right?
Yeah.
And while at least, that is great, but it also doesn't bode well for decentralization of the project, because it means that you're very reliant on this small group of people. Maybe that will change in the future, but our primitives are much more easier to understand, that someone with a math degree can probably get it, right? Rather than, if you get a math degree, ask them to look into ZK, it's really tough. So so even if the core team disappears, or, for whatever reason, hopefully not in jail and stuff like that, there will be people, many more people able to continue the project as well. So that is right now in the DevNet stage. We'll be launching testnet, and we're definitely going to be launching it something this year. And the other thing that it can do with an extension is called Spark Assets, and that allows you to hide the asset type. So what that means is, if we have this whole asset ecosystem, let's say I make a privacy dot coin, I make a Ceph coin and whatnot. The beauty about hiding the asset type is that any transaction looks like a regular FIRO transaction. I don't know whether FIRO is being transferred. I don't know whether dot coin is transferred. It's all indistinguishable. And what that means is that every participant in the ecosystem increases the anonymity of everyone else, rather than just like, okay, FIRO cryptocurrency, dot coin and whatnot. All of it is contributing to everyone's privacy. So that's really good, and we're really excited about this. And Monero's next gen privacy protocol called Seraphis actually took many of the key components of the design, the addressing design, the membership proof design, and all of that. So it's actually taken like all the core components that's very, very similar to our construction. Obviously, there are slight differences. They are more suited to Monero and more suited to FIRO, but the key constructions came from us, and it brings us a lot of pride that this is also our developments are being used in something like Monero. Obviously, our anonymity sets will still be bigger, like we'll be looking like 65K. I believe the way Monero is looking at it is just like increasing the ring size to 256 or something like that. So the way we approach it is still different. But it's good to kind of get like for a much smaller project that our very, very the kind of like the skeleton of this is still being used in our ideas are validated, right? So I think that's really exciting as well. Yeah,
that's amazing. Yeah, and I know that the Monero Research Labs and then FIRO, right, and prior to that Zcoin, it seems that there's always been very goodwill between those teams, between your teams, And I know even just having Diego Salazar, I think he still serves as an advisor coming from the Monero background to FIRO, right?
Yeah, I mean, like he's part of the FIRO community fund with a committee which is separate and independent. Like we don't have any votes in that committee, and
Got it.
he also has a company called CipherStack that offers certain services to us, like dev admin and stuff and research as well. So CipherStack has been a really big supporter for us, and they even came out with a really cool totally open source stack multi-coin wallet, which also supports our FIRO and the privacy features. It also supports Monero and all this. Also, quick share for Stack Wallet. So that's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't even aware of that. I'm just about to start evaluating some of those wallets. I'll hit up Diego for him to shell his stuff. But that's just super cool, though. It seems like what I meant to say by asking about that, or what I meant to get at, is just that it seems like there's been tremendous goodwill between the FIRO team and so many other privacy-oriented projects in years past. And whether or not that's like how that's expressed on their side, it seems like in terms of what FIRO is contributing and the way that you're having those like building those relationships. I mean, like you asked about Monerotopia, it sounds like FIRO is invited there, right?
Yeah, we're speaking there. So, we were also part of the Monero village last time in DEF CON. We also were at the Monero Con. I think we are going to be presenting a Monero conference for our Spark asset stuff. So I think it is great. Like I some of the really nice, like people that really believe, like Justin Aaron Hoffer, even like Sarang came from the Monero community. So I'm really grateful for people like that.
Yeah.
And Douglas awesome. and from Monero Talk, they're really cool people.
100%. Yeah. No, just so much goodwill. Coming out of that community. Yeah, it's been a very pleasant surprise. The more I get to know the members of that community, the more pleasantly surprised I am. But let's go ahead, and we're going about a half hour here.
Yeah, sorry.
No, it's fine. Here's the thing. When it comes to talking about more in-depth privacy projects like FIRO, clearly we've just scratched the surface. There's more to it. There's some documentation coming up, I'm sure, for how people can participate in the Lelantis Spark ecosystem as you approach that testnet launch, right?
Yeah, I mean, we're launching Spark first, which is not the ecosystem thing. We just want to get that privacy out, then people can stop, like, it's going to be like privacy on by default, but not compulsory. That means all our official wallets, we're going to be heavily pushing the use of our Spark addresses and stuff like that. We're trying to get in talks with some of the exchanges to allow them to support the Spark addresses. Fingers crossed there. And then after that, then we'll be full on into Spark assets. Yeah.
That's awesome. So, I mean, for my part, like I rarely discuss Trade Ogre openly because it's a little like Fight Club, but have they already expressed some interest as far as supporting Spark addresses?
I actually should have that conversation with them. We haven't gotten there yet. I mean, I'm just glad they added us. I mean, it's a bit of like, who are they? But I think they're offering a service. Obviously don't trust any centralized exchange. Trade Ogre is a centralized exchange, so they can easily run away with your money. But it's cool that I do think I wish that we could go back to the no KYC exchange era, but I feel like that's ending, and I guess Trade Ogre is providing that service. Yeah, but I will definitely hit him up on that. Hit him or her or whoever.
Yeah, no, that sounds like a really good first candidate then for adoption of Spark only on exchange. But should also ask, you mentioned earlier when we were off camera that there is a not an ERC20 but a BEP20 representation of FIRO as well. So people can currently, if they wanted to be involved in just the sort of, at this point, I guess we're coming up on DeFi Summer 3. Right? Or if they wanted to have their cake and eat it too, right? If they wanted to be working with FIRO over in an EVM ecosystem, but then bridge over once Spark launches and then have true privacy in the FIRO ecosystem. What does that look like for them today?
So today, I mean, like Well, first of all, BEP20 FIRO is issued by Binance themselves, so you have to trust. They actually publish an address that shows the full amount that they are issuing, the native FIRO, where they are holding it to back the BEP20 FIRO, which is great. I like that transparency of that. But obviously, BEP20 FIRO is custodial because you have to trust Binance, right? I'm not going to express any opinion on that, but there are obviously custody risks. If they run or like if the FIRO disappears, like there's nothing you can do about it, right? But I feel that BP20 FIRO, like wrapped Bitcoin, like whatever, or like even stable coins are basically like wrapped US dollars, right, in a way.
Yeah. Right.
And if you're comfortable with that, the Binance BNB chain, offers a lot of stuff like AMM. Like this right now, we're on PancakeSwap. There's actually an ongoing liquidity campaign. If you provide liquidity there, you get certain rewards. And we're also going to be. I have a personal project called FIRO Foxes, which is going to be like this little game. You probably can like show some pictures later. This is, I guess, quite early. I mean, we're hoping to launch this year. And it will allow you to have some NFTs and actually use them as story elements in the game and do missions and earn rewards and stuff like that. So I'm really excited about that. Just more like, sometimes, dealing with core privacy tech is tough work and sometimes it's good to have a bit of fun, and we would also like to reach out to, like, I guess, the more casual people or even existing FIRO people who just want to have fun and think about FIRO more. And so there'll be cool merch as well. So yeah, I guess you can show that later on, or maybe post edit or whatever.
What I don't. Oh man, unfortunately I don't have it queued up to share.
No worries.
But I can do an overlay and we'll take a look at that. But that sounds super exciting. I mean, NFTs, we talked about it earlier. I mean, if some people are being onboarded through NFTs, then I mean, we need to meet people where they are, right? I mean, and if they're new users
your question was, how can you bridge from BEV20 to native FIRO? We actually have a FIRO DEX, which is a partnership with Atomic DEX. So you can actually almost swap BEP20 FIRO and vice versa to native FIRO on this FIRO DEX, and almost one-to-one pricing, and it's done using atomic swaps. So you can do that at a decent size, or you can just go through Binance and I think they almost have like any size that you want, but because you have to do KYC at Binance. But with the FIRO DEX, you don't have to. So that's cool.
Yeah, that definitely sounds preferable. To me for sure. If there's a DEX, I'm all for that. Well, let me ask this before we close out. What is the best way for people to get involved with FIRO today? And what's the best way for them to be in touch with you or other members of the community and core contributor team?
I think the best way is actually still our Telegram and Discord communities, right? And we obviously, a lot of people think that, the only way to contribute is through development. Sure, obviously, if you take a look at the GitHub, you see something that, if you have something that we have this thing on our forum that lists all the stuff that we want done. So if you feel like taking on a task, great. But even if you don't know anything about it, just being a part of the community, chilling, talking about FIRO, asking us questions, and I'm there every day. I'm quite maybe too accessible, but yeah, we really welcome people. You just want to know more, you want to ask about questions, or participate in our forums. There's actually like community governance, right? You want to see something being funded, or you want to vote who's getting into the committee, do all of that. And hopefully with FIRO Foxes, there'll be more fun ways to interact with FIRO as well.
Awesome. Well, looking forward to that. And Mind Your Biz audience, if you haven't already taken a look at it, all the links are in the description. And I think, we will do a post edit. So you will have already seen what I've seen from the FIRO Foxes project, and you have something to look forward to there. On roadmap, as far as that goes, we're currently recording in early mid-March. When should people look forward to big announcements in FIRO Foxes?
FIRO Foxes, I would say maybe May would be FIRO Foxes. I would say testnet launch maybe in the next 2 to 3 weeks for Spark. Spark assets will be, I would say, Q4, but Spark is definitely coming this year, and hopefully, yeah, I'm really hyped about that because that is a huge thing. And obviously, we have other things down the line, like with. Well, I probably wouldn't share too much about that yet because the research is still ongoing. But you can actually take a look on our forums, and we post weekly development updates. So it's all transparent for everyone to see, for those who check.
Okay,
Yeah.
awesome. Well, then we'll have to schedule another one for when those assets do go live, because I'm excited to see what that looks like to have have privacy by default, and then have that anonymity set growing with the assets moving on chain. I mean, that sounds amazing. So we're gonna have to do a follow up at that point. But Reuben, really appreciate your time today. Really appreciate the amount of effort, the blood, sweat, and tears, the sleepless nights that you've put in on behalf of such an innovative privacy project. So thank you for making time again to be on Mind Your Biz today.
Thank you, Seth.